Greetings, folks. You're tuned in with Hajboil Hassan, kickboxing coach and teacher from out the East Bay, California. And today we are here for a Montu segment. Now, let me start like this. Boxing history is packed with legends, but some of the baddest fighters never ever even got a title shot. Not because they weren't good enough, certainly, because nobody wanted the smoke. From the 1930s through the 1950s, a crew of insanely tough and talented black fighters ruled the ring. They became known as the Black Murderers Row. These guys were feared across boxing. Champions and promoters often dodged them because they were too dangerous and too risky to fight. On top of that, racism and shady boxing politics kept them from getting the recognition and title opportunities they deserved. Since the big names wouldn't fight them, they ended up battling each other non-stop, producing some of the hardest, most brutal fights of the era. Even without world titles, their skill, toughness, and heart earned them a legendary reputation among boxing fans and historians. This 8-man lineup of exceptional boxers was as follows: Charlie Burley, Burt Littell, Aaron Wade, Jack Chase, Eddie Booker, Lloyd Marshall, Holman Williams, and the Coco Kid. Now let's break it down. Charlie Burley, the best fighter never to win a title. Born September 6, 1917 in Bessemer, Charlie Burley is still talked about as maybe the greatest boxer to never get a world title shot. Charlie Burley had the full package: speed, power, slick defense, and a super sharp boxing brain. His record was 83-12-2 with 50 knockouts, and he beat big names like Archie Moore and Fritzy Zivik. The wild part, a lot of fighters wanted no part of him, even Sugar Ray Robinson, who many call the greatest boxer ever, never fought Charlie Burley. Sugar Ray Robinson's own manager later admitted they basically sidestepped him during Sugar Ray's championship years because Charlie Burley was just that dangerous. His reputation scared people off so much that some managers reportedly told matchmakers don't even say his name. Since the top champions avoided him, Charlie Burley took fights wherever he could get them, often against bigger men in higher weight classes. He fought middleweights like heavyweights and even heavyweights like Ezra Charles just to stay busy. Even without a title fight, though, Charlie Burley earned massive respect in the boxing circles and was eventually inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. To boxing historians, he's not just underrated, he's a straight up legend. Burt Littell, the Enigma. Born on January 24th, 1924 in Victoria, Burt Littell, better known as the Chocolate Kid, was one of those fighters nobody really wanted to deal with. He was slick, tough as nails, and fought with the tricky southpaw style that gave opponents headaches. Littell mixed it up with some of the best fighters around and proved he belonged by beating names like Archie Moore, Holman Williams, and the Coco Kid, who we'll later discuss. Back then, Opportunities for black fighters were already hard to come by, and being dangerous like Burt Littell only made things worse. A lot of boxing champions looked at him as high risk with little reward, so he kept getting passed over. There were even stories that Sugar Ray Robinson wasn't interested in stepping to the ring with him. Even with all that talent, Burt Littell never got a shot at a world title. Instead, he spent his career battling other killers from the Black Murderers Row in brutal, hard-fought matches. A lot about his career still feels mysterious, which is why people call him the Enigma. But one thing boxing people agree on, Burt Littell was one of the most feared men of this era. Aaron Wade, the Tiger, born March 17th, 1916, in Trenton, New Jersey. Aaron Wade was one of the toughest men in the Black Murderers Row lineup. Nicknamed Tiger, Wade fought with nonstop pressure and serious power, especially for a guy standing in just height of 5'5". He was fearless in the ring and scored wins over several fellow Murderers Row fighters, including the legendary Archer Moore. Aaron Wade was also known for sparring with Sugar Ray Robinson. In one session, supposedly got so rough that Sugar Ray Robinson was badly hurt and had to cancel upcoming fights. The two later fought in non-title match, though stories from that era claim that Aaron Wade accepted money to lose on purpose, showing how crooked boxing could be back then. Before turning pro, Aaron Wade made a name for himself in amateur boxing and is often credited as one of the first Black American Golden Gloves champions in Illinois. Some stories say he even fought hundreds of amateur bouts, maybe even around 600, though nobody knows the exact number for sure. Outside the ring, Aaron Wade's life wasn't easy. He struggled with alcoholism and hard times after boxing, but eventually turned things around. Later in life, he became a Christian minister in San Francisco, up here in the Bay, and dedicated himself to helping other people. His story pretty much sums up what the fighters of Black Murderers Row went through: brutal fights, racism, poverty, and boxing politics, but also toughness, survival, and heart. Jack Chase, the troubled contender. Born January 27, 1914, in Sherman, Jack Chase lived a life that was just a wild outside in the ring as it was inside. In his early career, people called him the young Joe Louis because of his punching power and flashy style. Over time, he built a reputation as a dangerous fighter who could hurt anybody, fighting more than 100 bouts against some of the toughest men around, especially fellow members of the Black Murderers Row. Jack Chase had real talent and knockout power, but his career kept getting derailed by legal problems, arrest, prison time. His life was full of chaos, and one of the craziest stories involved fellow boxer Aaron Wade. During a bar fight, Jack Chase actually shot Aaron Wade and then unbelievably fought him in the ring the next year and won by a knockout. That story pretty much captures how rough and unpredictable boxing life could be back then. Even with all the drama, Jack Chase beat several top fighters and held his own against some of the most feared names of the era. But like so many fighters from the Murderers Row, he never got the chance to fight for a world championship. Today, Jack Chase is remembered as a fearless, dangerous contender, a fighter with huge talent who can never fully escape the troubles waiting for him outside the ropes. Eddie Booker, the Black Dynamite. Born November 5th, 1917, in Alto, Texas, Eddie Booker was one of the smoothest and most dangerous fighters in the Black Murderers Row. Nicknamed Black Dynamite, Booker had the kind of style that gave opponents nightmares. Fast hands, sharp timing, serious power, and the ability to break fighters down with clean, accurate punches. His biggest statement came when he knocked out future legend Archie Moore. Archie Moore later admitted Booker was one of the greatest fighters of my time, which says a lot considering who Archie fought during his career. Like many fighters in Murderers Row, Eddie Booker was so dangerous that a lot of top contenders wanted nothing to do with him. The risk just wasn't worth it for champions and promoters, especially during an era filled with racism and boxing politics. Sadly, Eddie Booker's career ended way too soon. At only 27 years old, he suffered a severe eye damage after a fight. Some stories claim that the gloves may have been tampered with, but though nobody ever proved exactly what happened. The injury left him blind for the rest of his life. Even without a title shot, Eddie Booker earned legendary respect in boxing circles. To many historians and hardcore fans, he's still one of the greatest fighters who never got the chance to fight for a world title. Lloyd Marshall, the knockout artist, born June 4th, 1914 in Madison County, Georgia. Lloyd Marshall was one of the hardest punchers in the Black Murderers Row. This guy could seriously crack. Lloyd Marshall built a reputation as a dangerous knockout artist who wasn't afraid of anybody. He beat future champions like Jay LaMotta, Joey Maxim, and Freddie Mills. He even knocked out Ezra Charles, who later became heavyweight champion of the world. Lloyd Marshall turned pro in 1936 and quickly became one of the most feared contenders around. But his timing couldn't have been worse. A lot of his best years happened during World War II when many boxing titles were basically frozen and opportunities were limited. Add racism and boxing politics on top of that, and Lloyd Marshall never got the world title shot his talent deserved. Even without a championship fight, though, his resume was crazy impressive. He beat 8 different fighters who either were or became world champions, which tells you how legit he really was. Lloyd Marshall's mix of power, toughness, and fearless attitude made him one of the most respected men in the Murderers Row. After retiring in 1951, he was eventually inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, finally getting some recognition as one of boxing's forgotten greats. Holman Williams, the technician, born January 30th, 1915 in Pensacola, Florida. Shout out to Roy Jones, also a boxing veteran, modern era, the by the way, who's also from Pensacola, Florida. Holman Williams was the smooth scientist of the Black Murderers Row. While some fighters relied on brute force, Williams made boxing look easy. He was slick, smart, technically brilliant, and the kind of fighter hardcore boxing fans would still rave about today. Legendary trainer Eddie Futch once said he'd rather watch Holman Williams spar than watch most fighters compete for real, which tells you how respected he was in boxing circles. Holman Williams fought nearly 190 professional bouts and faced just about every dangerous contender out there. He controlled fights with sharp counterpunching, smooth footwork, and a crazy high boxing IQ. A lot of opponents simply couldn't figure him out. Even with all that talent, he never got a world title shot though. Like many black fighters of that era, racism and boxing politics slammed doors in his face. Still, he kept proving himself by beating top-ranked fighters and fellow murderer row killers. His resume included wins over dangerous names like Coco Kid, Burt Littell, showing he belonged with the very best in the sport. A lot of boxing historians believe Holman Williams might have been the most complete all-around fighter in the entire group. Not just tough, but incredibly skilled in every area of boxing. Sadly, like many fighters from Murderers Row, Williams didn't get full recognition while he was alive. He passed away in 1967 at the age of 52, but today he's remembered as one of the greatest fighters to never win or even fight for a world title. The Coco Kid, the forgotten genius. Born in May 2nd, 1914, in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico, as Herbert Lewis Hardwick, Coco Kid had one of the most skill-heavy careers in the entire Black Murderers Row. He grew up through tragedy early, losing both his parents young and being raised in Atlanta by his aunt. But once he got into boxing, it was obvious he had something special. He turned pro at just the age of 15 and quickly built a reputation as a slick technical fighter with great defense, smart counterpunching, and serious stamina. The Coco Kid ended up fighting an insane number of bouts, over 200, possibly close to 240, against some of the toughest guys of his times. He shared the ring with elite names like Archie Moore, Lou Ambers, Chalky Wright. And even with all that skill, he still got frozen out of the world title shot. Promoters and champions largely avoided him, and boxing politics plus racial barriers kept him stuck fighting other top contenders instead of getting a shot at the crown. Even Sugar Ray Robinson, one of the greatest ever, reportedly avoided him as well more than once, and there are stories that the Coco Kid even dropped Sugar Ray Robinson in sparring. Whether fully confirmed or not, that alone shows how dangerous he was considered. He did manage to win the World Colored Welterweight Championship, but like so many fighters in Murderers Row, that was as close as he got to real recognition. After retiring in 1950, life got rough, he struggled with money, and later developed symptoms consistent with brain trauma from boxing. He passed away in 1966, just at the age of 52 years old. Today, Coco Kid is remembered as exactly what the nickname says, a forgotten genius, a fighter with elite skill who, because of the era he lived in, never got the chance to become a true world champion. These guys were so good that a lot of champions just didn't want any part of them. Between racial barriers and boxing politics, they got shut out of the spotlight way too often. But that didn't stop them from fighting. Instead, they ended up going toe to toe with each other, putting on some of the toughest, most brutal fights boxing's ever seen. Today, they're looked back at with respect with what they built, what they went through. This is the highlight of 8 of the most feared contenders in boxing history. Fighters who never got the full shine they deserved and left behind a legacy that still hits hard, pun intended. That's our topic as we close out from this time to the next time. Peace, salance, prosperity. Be easy.